family programs. Let me hit record. There we go. Yeah, again, it's such a pleasure to be with y'all this evening. I have not done one of these since August, so please forgive me. I am a little rusty, but we're back in the swing of things for our first webinar of the academic year. And we are coming to y'all this evening, all things global education opportunities. Um, as if you've done these before, if you did them all, did them in the summer, you know how these work. So we're doing the welcome right now, and if you have any questions throughout the entire presentation, you can always use the Q&A feature that is below. I know Instinct is telling you, oh, let me put it in the chat, but it might get lost in the chat. So please utilize that Q&A feature that's at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So yeah, we will have time at the end for any Q&A. But yeah, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our friends in global education. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Justin. And thank you so much for hosting us for this webinar. My name is Amy Bose, and I'm the Associate Director of the Global Education Office. And with me today, my colleague Mariah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Mariah Henderson. I'm one of the assistant directors in the Global Education Office.
Yes. And so I have a slide deck we're going to go through. Let me launch it. Okay. So we're going to go over all of the things that parents and families need to know, give you a nice overview, sort of a study away 101. But this is really focused on the things that you as parents might want to know so that you can help your students as they're making decisions about study away. So where will your student go? The amazing thing about Duke Global Education is we have so many options for them. We have over 170 unique academic experiences all over the world. We even offer domestic programs. And if your student can't find something, we have a process where they can do their own thing too. The sky is really the limit with global education. This next slide is showing you the 11 opportunities that Duke students have to study away. Um, if your student is a sophomore or a junior, you might be hearing from them, no, everybody studies away at X time. That's not true, and it doesn't have to be true. Your student can study away any of these times, starting with the summer after their freshman year. So, summer one and summer two, we have a lot of faculty-led programs. We'll talk a little bit about those. But those are a nice way for our first year students who are rising sophomores to get some experience with Duke faculty in the field. And then starting with the fall of the sophomore year, and then all the way through fall of senior year. We don't want students studying abroad in their last semester because it does take a little while for transcripts to come in and for credit to reconcile.
Right. There are two main types of programs that GEO offers, either Duke administered or Duke approved. Duke administered are created and led by Duke faculty and administration, and students receive Duke credit or hybrid credit, where they're getting some Duke credit and some transfer credit. There are a variety of Duke administered programs offered during semesters and during the summer. Duke approved programs are created and led by third-party providers and other institutions. These are generally semester programs that bring back transfer credit only. Duke credit maps directly back to courses at Duke. So hybrid and study away transfer credit all require students to go through the course approval process. And we'll talk a bit about that later. Okay. When helping your student choose a program, a few things that you'll want to consider. What are the classes that they need to take in that particular semester? What is the cost of the program? Are they interested in learning a language or really just studying in English? What identities do they hold, and how will those identities be received in the different locations that they're considering? and how much support will they need while on site? So as we think about Duke administered programs, these are programs that really are a perk for Duke students. They are programs that were crafted with Duke students in mind. For example, we have computer science at Duke in Berlin, public policy at Duke in Glasgow, gastronomy in Madrid. Students can intern in LA, New York, or DC. They can see battlefields of Normandy while studying in Duke in France, or snorkel in the Barrier Reef in Duke in Australia. In addition to coursework designed by Duke faculty that seamlessly fits into the Duke curriculum, Duke administered programs provide additional Duke and on-site support, a variety of experiential excursions, and opportunities to connect with Duke alumni.
So the next thing we're going to look at is cost. So Duke administered and Duke approved have two separate sets of costs. If you're looking at a Duke administered program, you pay Duke tuition and a program fee. So the program fee usually covers like the housing, any meals, excursions that are included in the cost of the program. Um, Sometimes housing is billed separately. It varies a little bit by program. Sometimes there could be a housing supplement if you choose one kind of housing over another, like a homestay versus a residence hall. And then additional expenses, we try to outline those in the other costs. We call them the non-billable costs. So you'll see things like an estimate for airfare, an estimate for visas, vaccinations, things like that. And so you'll get a cost sheet for the Duke programs. You'll even see them on the websites as those programs are recruiting for their cycle. So anything that's open right now for spring, you'll see a cost sheet. The fall and the summer cost sheets are going to be populating very soon if they're not up already. Um, and then for Duke approved programs, you're going to pay the institution or the provider directly. So if there's tuition at the tuition at the University of Sydney is going to be billed by the University of Sydney. Housing costs are going to be paid directly to the housing provider that your student chooses. The only thing that'll be on the bill from Duke, from the Global Education Office, is the study abroad fee, which is $4,580. Those additional expenses also vary by program still. And most of especially the providers, are really good about putting those additional fees together for you. Otherwise, it's always good to sit down and do a budget with your student, especially considering that many of the locations that are really popular with our students have higher cost of living than we have necessarily in Durham, North Carolina. So, a good example of that is the DIS program in Copenhagen. Copenhagen, the cost of living is higher than it is here in North Carolina. The wonderful thing about Duke is that we have a financial aid office that is so supportive of our study abroad students. If you click on the link that is associated with this QR code, it's going to take you to the Karsh Financial Aid Office's website, and they have their page for study abroad divided by summer and semester, and then Duke in and Duke approved. And so if you click on the type of program your student is going on and the term that they're going abroad, you'll get a list of FAQs that answer questions about, like, when will I know about my aid? When will my aid distribute? How much aid will I get compared to a semester at Duke? All of those things. The one thing we do want to draw to everyone's attention, though, this is a very popular parent question, not so much a popular student question. But if you are paying tuition with a 529, then you need to make sure that the 529 can pay the program. Duke programs are fine with a 529. The non-Duke programs are sometimes run by providers that are academic and tied to academic institutions, but often can't bill you as an academic institution. They bill you as a company. So those don't always work with every 529 plan. So you'll want to confirm that your plan can pay for the program that your student is going on. Is this still me, Mariah?
It is still you.
Okay, just checking. So the Duke approved best fit process. So one of the things you might have heard from students is that Duke puts a cap on the number of students who can go on any one program. As you can imagine, the goals of study abroad are really, immersion, ensuring high quality academic experiences, looking out for students' health and safety. All of those things, when you have 300 students go to one location, get harder and harder to maintain. Every time you send another, 20 students, you need another classroom, you need another instructor. And so, what we found is that when students grouped in one location, the quality of the academic experience, the grades the students received on the program, the immersive quality of the experience, and then also just the number of health and safety incidents that occurred all started to go up. And that wasn't a trend we wanted to see for our Duke students. So we started this process called Best Fit. And essentially, students will fill out a worksheet. It's an online worksheet, and they'll answer a bunch of questions about the specific program that they want to go on. And then we will look at that worksheet, and there's a rubric, and they're all given a copy of that rubric so they can see exactly how their worksheet is scored. And the people who score the highest will get to go to those locations. And we always encourage students to have backup. So, an example of this, just so we're not just picking at random. There are certain programs that are really excellent for, like, let's say, biomedical engineering. But that's not super common on study abroad. So if we don't hold some space for the biomedical engineers on that program, then econ majors who maybe could go on 5 other programs in that same country or that same region might be taking those spaces that we could be helping biomedical engineers out with. So it's a way of sort of leveling the playing field and also ensuring that we don't end up with more than the cap is roughly 50. Some programs can accommodate more than 50, so we allow that. Some can't accommodate 50, so we cut off the cap sooner than that.
That's to me. So let's walk through a few examples of these programs. So we have 2 links here. You can use the QR codes to take you directly to the website. And we're gonna walk through each of the pages just to show you what those look like as well. Amy, are you showing it or do you want me to?
Are you seeing Duke in Berlin right now?
No, I'm not.
Interesting.
Like,
Huh.
it looks like you stopped sharing.
Let me try again. Let's see. Is that Duke in Berlin now?
It is. Perfect.
Okay.
So this is the program page for Duke in Berlin, one of our Duke administered programs. And so you'll see that across the top, there are several different tabs and that all have important information. So academics is going to talk about the courses that are available, the way that they transfer back, course load. So this is really important. Each program is a little bit different because of the host university or just the way that the programs are structured. And so it does matter that you take a look at these and make sure that the courses that are available are courses that your student would want to take and would be beneficial to them towards their degree. Activities is going to give you a little idea of some of the extracurricular activities that are a part of the program. I will caveat that just because they're listed here doesn't mean that they will always be the exact excursions from year to year. Sometimes things happen that, require different itineraries, but it gives you an idea of some of the different types of activities that are generally included. The location and housing tab will talk about the types of housing that are available on the program. Again, this varies pretty broadly or widely by program, so it is important to think about. And so in a program where like only homestays are available, if a homestay situation is not a comfortable situation for you and you know that like your student would not be able to thrive in that environment, that may not be the right program for them. So that's something to think about. Homestays are wonderful though, and really are the best way to acquire language, learn about the culture. So we do get a lot of students who are hesitant about homestays and going into people's houses, and I get that. But they often come out the other side saying that that is the best part of their experience because they got to really bond with a family and learn the culture that way. The application process and dates page is going to talk about application eligibility, if there are prereqs for the program, if there are physical requirements. A lot of these programs do require a significant amount of walking. It's typically walking around cities and things like that. But depending on the program, there may be walking through countryside or hiking or things like that that you should be aware of. It has some information about how to apply if there are any specifics about that program. The deadlines and dates, those get updated semesterly. So as things change, you'll see that right now there is not an application cycle open for Duke and Berlin. That's going to open soon. And then at the bottom is the schedules for the upcoming semesters. So this is fall 2025 here. It hasn't been updated for spring 26 yet. And then a very important tab is the cost tab. So this is where you're going to see the billable and estimated costs for the program. It's important to look at both because there is the billable cost, that is the tuition and the program fee, which is the program fee is specific to that program. Tuition is Duke tuition, it's a Duke program. As a Duke student, you wouldn't have to do the transcript fee. That's already a thing that you get already. And then the billable costs are important to look at, but also to know that they are estimates. So we tried to give a pretty generous estimate for things like airfare, books, meals, miscellaneous could be travel or activities or anything that your student might be doing. But you have to understand that these are estimates. It is very possible to spend significantly more than what we have estimated. It is certainly possible to spend less. It really depends on the type of traveler that your student is, the types of things that they're doing, where they're traveling from. All of those things play a part. Those costs are estimated into financial aid distributions. So that's important to know too, that depending on your financial aid package, it should include some of these costs as well. So that would be something to talk to the financial aid counselor to see exactly how a certain student's financial aid package would cover specific expenses for a program. And then we have a little explanation about some of these costs, a lot of what I just said, but feel free to look at those links that take you to the Bursar's office, financial aid. Then finally, we have program staff. So you'll see here is our program staff in Berlin. These are people who live in Berlin full-time. Teen and Andrea, they are fantastic. And then we also have listed the Durham side staff that work with the program. So in this case, Kayla and Doug are also fantastic, lovely colleagues. And then the last tab is going to be some student testimonials, so students sharing their experience about the program. All right, the other program that I'm showing to you is a Duke approved program. And so you'll see that this page doesn't have quite as much information because it's not our program. But we try to link and put in the most relevant information. Once programs open, applications open, and we start making decisions, that link at the top that's highlighted will be a really important link to check, because it'll give you an idea of whether programs have gone on a wait list, whether they're still open, whether their deadline has passed. So especially as time goes by, if you are looking at different programs, or maybe you didn't get the one that you're hoping for and you're trying to find a different option, that's a really great resource to see what is still available. As you scroll down, it's going to give you some general information about the program. We scroll back up a little bit more, Amy. So that link there where it says for more program information is going to be one of the key pieces of information that you need to see on this page, because that will take you to the actual program's website. So like ours had a lot of information about our Duke Approved program. This will take you to HKU's website where you can explore all of the nitty-gritty details about their program. As you scroll down, you'll see best fit. So this program is best fit for economics and math. So again, that doesn't mean that students that are not economics and math cannot apply. It just means that those students are prioritized because this program is especially good for students studying those subjects. As we continue to go down, you'll see more general information about the program. Academics, it's important to note here the course load. Course load for Duke approved programs is not the same necessarily as at Duke. So at Duke, a full course load is 4 courses. The equivalent of 4 Duke courses is not always 4 courses somewhere else. And so that's really important to look at that and understand what the course load is going to be. Remember, that's the equivalent to a Duke course load. So we expect the load to be about the same, but it might mean more courses. As you keep scrolling down, some more information on the Duke side of things about academics. Here's information about the application process. So to apply for an approved program, students have to apply first to Duke and get approval, and then secondly to the program. So once Duke has approved, you have to apply to the program directly and get accepted to the program. So information about applying for Duke, more information about HKU, and then information about the cost. We don't put the cost of the program directly on this page because it's not our information. That's something that you'll need to go to the program page. That was that link at the top to find their costs. They keep that updated for their programs. And then lastly, contacts. So these are some of the HKU contacts that we have. Also, SDAO, if your student has any disability accommodations, it is a good thing to think about how those could be honored or accommodated abroad. It's not always the same. So that's something to think through. And then I think and then some more Duke resources as well. The Office of Global Health and Safety is a 24/7 office that is available to students while they're abroad. They have a phone that they carry around with them all the time. And our International SOS is the international security insurance that every Duke student is a part of while they're studying abroad. And then information about, for this program specifically, restricted medications, because there are some pretty significant differences between what is allowed to be carried into Hong Kong versus the US. So it's important to make sure you're not carrying any illegal substances. Right. Okay, let me make my screen small again. All right, so we are at Parent and Family Weekend, October. Students should start thinking about their study abroad, honestly, as early as they can. In my opinion, the more time that you spend planning the courses that you can take while abroad, saving some courses that might be really good options for abroad. That's always a real benefit to be able to have a flexible schedule. But generally, 6 months to a year, depending on the program, is a really good time to be thinking about where you might be studying abroad. It's always a good idea to have a backup option, have at least one or two backup schools, backup programs that could be options for your student. Some programs do fill quickly, so it's always best to apply early and complete materials as soon as possible. Fall and summer Duke administered applications will open on November 1st. And these applications are reviewed on a rolling basis. For most programs, we do have a few programs that have priority deadlines. So make sure that your student is checking the deadline page on our website for those programs. The Duke approved worksheets also open on November 1st. And no Duke approved worksheets will be reviewed before the early consideration deadline of December 1st. So students have a month from when applications open to that early consideration deadline to complete an application, plenty of time. We encourage your students to take their time through November to review their programs, find their best fit, complete those applications, and they can have up to 2 applications open, so first choice and a backup. And that is highly recommended to do. If the student fills out the Duke approved worksheet and submits before the end of the day on December 1st, they will know the outcome of their submission by January 8th. So basically after the winter break. After December 1st, students will be considered on a rolling basis and will receive their decisions after January 8th. Students can submit a Duke approved worksheet for any program up until that program's semester application deadline. Once students receive notification from Duke that their worksheet has been approved to apply, they then complete an application on the program to the program provider on their website or the host institution's website, but to the program directly. Each program has their own deadlines, so it's important to be aware of those. And students should check the institution or provider websites for specifics. We do try to keep that that highlighted link that I showed you to the spreadsheet that has the deadlines. But I will say that sometimes programs close early because they fill up. So it's really best to check the provider or the institution's website for those. The summer deadline for Duke administered programs is February 15th, and fall deadlines vary by program. Decisions typically are issued on a rolling basis, or there are a few programs that have hard deadlines, but check the program page for those details to see how those applications are reviewed. And then spring applications will open on March 15th. Spring deadlines also vary by program. Decisions for Duke administered programs are typically issued on a rolling basis for spring programs. Or a deadline basis. Again, just check the program page.
Okay.
Back to you, Amy.
Back to me. I think another good thing for parents to know about is just some basic policies. We do have the handbook, which is linked here on that QR code that will take you to the general global education handbook. But a couple of things for you all to know about. One, with FERPA in place, we often can't talk to parents directly about program logistics and specifics unless your student is involved in that conversation because they are over the age of 18. We do need that consent and we do need that involvement in order to have conversations with you, especially when it goes past the information that is publicly available. That's why we try to put a lot of stuff like our policies and this program information that Mariah just showed you. All of that is out on the internet, and you can find it without going behind a Duke shibboleth or anything like that. So the more information we put out, the less we can't tell you because it's not publicly available. But just keep that in mind. If we say that we want to involve your student in a conversation, that's why. Um, Students have to be in good academic and disciplinary standing to go abroad. Um, there is no independent housing allowed on study away. What this means is that the students have to use the housing that is available through the provider. We do have, like, there's one notable exception. If you have a family member who's living, an immediate family member, it really has to be like a grandparent, an aunt, a sister, a brother, living in that place, then your student can live with them. But they do have to be a permanent resident of that location. They can't just be there for the semester with your student. They must take a full course load, no overloads, no underloads. So that means if, like Mariah was showing you, Hong Kong has 5 courses as its full course load. Your student, when they go to Hong Kong, if they come back to us and say, "Can I take 6 courses?" we have to say no. If they say, "Can I take 4 courses?" we also have to say no. No overloads, no underloads. Um, and that handbook is really super helpful. I believe there's an email. In fact, I know there's an email that goes out to parents um, before the programs depart with the handbook linked and some specific parent information. We did just redo our website too, and there's a whole parent and families page that's mapped out to different parts of our website that are relevant to parents and families. And so that's something also to start with if you're looking for a place to start to find information. Let's see. Mariah mentioned our Office of Global Health and Safety. It's a separate office from the Global Education Office. It serves all of Duke, but this is for off-campus emergencies, essentially. There's a 24-hour, 7-day a week, 365 days a year human who answers that phone. It's not meant for "I lost my luggage." Instead, it's meant for, like, my student is, studying abroad in Hong Kong. The people there have taken him to a clinic to get assessed for a rolled ankle. We think it might be broken. And then they can help involve people like ISOS in ensuring that the student gets appropriate medical care, is supported, has translators, has confidence in the medical system that they're part of. If they need to, they'll evacuate them to another place to be treated adequately based on the standard of medical care that Duke requires. And then just a couple other things about health and safety as you're talking about this with your students. Um, Talk to them a little bit about your health insurance policy. It's good to start looking into whether that health insurance policy covers international like visits to the doctor if they have a cold or they need some antibiotics. But also, the student really needs to understand their insurance that they're taking with them. And I don't know about you all, but when I was in college, I definitely did not understand what that little card in my wallet did when I went to different hospitals or doctors or where I could and couldn't go. Having that conversation, making sure they understand what they have, making sure that your coverage has adequate coverage while they're away. You can also consider things like travel, property, and tuition insurance. Those are all things that Duke doesn't necessarily have a vendor for, but those are insurance options that people often explore as part of study away. Um, and so those are good health and safety things. the way that the advising approach, the way that students are interacting with our office. So there are really four main ways to interact with our office. One is that there's a Canvas course called Study Away 101, and that walks them through a lot of what we actually just talked about here, but also gives them some more specifics about academics and things that they're looking for. So, like, can I go on this program and get a social sciences and a natural sciences? Is this going to count for my public policy internship requirement? Things like that, that are like the nitty gritty of their degree progress that you all probably aren't involved in. So that goes a little bit more into that. There's also topic-based group advising. So we're putting on sessions about computer science, engineering, the course approval process. That's how you get new courses put into our database, so that they count back here at Duke. We're doing drop-ins on West Campus and on Zoom. So those are on the events tab of our website, which is where that QR code goes in the middle of the page. And then we also, especially for the Duke In programs, we do information sessions. If you look at our calendar right now, they're just starting to populate. I just saw one for Peru was on Instagram when I was looking after work today. So these are the summer programs that are getting ready to have info sessions. And so if a student wants to learn more about a specific program and they have questions, that's a good space because the faculty is there. They can answer questions directly. They might meet other students when they're at that information session who are also interested in going. And it's a good way to network and start to get to know the program a little bit more. So now we have a little over 20 minutes for questions. Um, let's see, I'm going to unshare my screen. That will help us out a lot. So I will start with the Q&A. Let's see. Looks like Mariah has gotten to a few of these. I read that Mandarin at HKU might not be accredited by Duke. Um, so that is up to the Asian Pacific Studies program, whether or not Mandarin will count. I think at this point in time, they are not allowing Mandarin classes. And let's see. Um,
There's a question about a student studying architecture and there not being any architecture programs. So for that one, I would say that there definitely are programs that would help him or them complete courses that they need. They may not be specifically architecture programs, but they should think about, are there math courses? Are there like electives, things like that? Maybe even art courses sometimes can count for architecture, especially any type of like elective, like category requirements are generally easier to find abroad because there's lots of options that could complete that category. So I would have him look at those types of courses in his degree plan, and think about where that he might be able to find those courses. And you can see which courses have been approved in our course approved course database. So if that course has been approved at a school already, he'd be able to see that they're already there. So that would be a great option as a place to start. For all of the students that don't know where to start, they should start with Study Away 101. So we have a self-paced Canvas course that takes them through kind of all the nuts and bolts of Study Away at Duke. And teaches them how to search for programs, what to look for, all of those things. And so that would be the best place to start.
yes. And I'm doing a couple of these. Um, do any of our summer programs offer internships? So right now, no, because they're really too short. We have experimented a little bit in the summer with the idea of doing sort of group projects with employers who are like Duke alumni and want students to work on a specific project. But because most of our summer programs are 4 to 6 weeks long, it's just one, it's a weird time of year. Like in our European sites, a lot of people are gone and on vacation, and they're not present for the students. And then two, it can take some time to build those relationships and get into the groove of the workplace. And we just find that 4 to 6 weeks is not enough time. But we do have internships on our Duke in New York fall program, our Duke in LA spring program, our Duke in DC spring program. And then the other thing that happens on summer programs that's worth bringing up is that we do engage with a lot of Duke alumni in the summer through employer visits. For instance, we have a new engineering program going this summer to Dublin, Ireland, and they're going to go on industry visits for biomedical engineering in Dublin, Cork, and Galway. Um, and then that also happens on our Duke in the Silicon Valley program in the summer. They go visit like places I've seen them visit, like Rothy's, Third Love. Um, that's all I can think of right now. But they make a robust list of places to go visit, and they're usually relatively new entrepreneurial companies that let the students in, have meetings with them, and let them ask questions, give them tours. And then a lot of the students do like ask for information or connect on LinkedIn and then set up internships later. So I do see a lot of that happening. The other one in the summer is London Finance. They do a lot of interaction with alumni. And in the spring, we have New York Finance, which also does a lot of that as well. But there's not really an internship.
Question about what programs are available for pre-med students. Generally, pre-med requirements are not advised to take abroad. Med schools don't want you to take those courses abroad. They need to be taken in the US. But there are a lot of skills that are very important for med school applications that can be enhanced through study abroad. For med school students, I would encourage them to think about programs that maybe focus on global health, if that's something that they're also interested in, or to look at non-med school requirements that they could take courses in, like for their major.
Let's see. Um, when students study abroad, are they able to take online courses? No. So Duke still operates in a fully face-to-face model. So all of our courses are face-to-face. There is no hybrid. And so even if there were online classes at Duke, they wouldn't be allowed to essentially dual enroll. Even though they're at Duke when they're studying away, it's a different registration, pricing, and credit model. So they're really in a separate status. And so they can't exist in both statuses at the same time.
Residence hall assignments or housing assignments for students when they're coming back from study abroad. So many students at Duke study abroad in the fall and then come back in the spring. And they will get housing, but they don't get to choose where their housing will be in the same way that they would kind of at the start of the year if they were starting, because they're slotting people into open spaces. That actually is a really great benefit for studying abroad in the spring, is that when you come back, they get to register for housing based on their academic year, and so they get that priority. So it does tend to end up with some students who come back from studying abroad in less desirable housing situations in the spring. Not bad ones, but things that are generally for younger students.
Yeah. Let's see.
Um,
Computer science courses. There are tons of computer science courses. One of the things that recently we saw happen with computer science courses is that some of our direct enroll universities, just because computer science has become so large, um, are starting to not allow outside students to take their classes because they're saving seats for their own students who are going to graduate from that university. So we have been looking for additional partnerships and building up that repertoire of computer science classes, and really looking for universities that are still allowing that space and that access. Australia, New Zealand, still excellent for computer science. We've got a brand new computer science program through Syracuse in London, because London was a place that was really difficult because a lot of those schools were the ones that weren't allowing us to take computer science classes. So the Syracuse program is opening up a lot of opportunities again in London. Um, but there are lots. And we didn't show the course approval database, but if you go on our website after this call, up at the top, there's some like quick links, and one of them is the course approval database. And you can access that and search by major. It's by no means a definitive list of courses that are available to Duke students, but because they can submit more and they can grow that list. But it's a good way to sort of tell where other computer science majors have gone in the past and could be something that sparks interest in your student that they want to carry forward. Um, Yes, there used to be an internship program at Duke in France, the Provence program. That one in particular is on hiatus for a little while just because the faculty member involved is currently the dean of Trinity, the curriculum. So she is taking a little hiatus, but that one could come back. And that was an all French internship. They can take the Duke Study Away class right now. Sorry, Mariah, I saw you just started typing that
Very
one.
good. I'm just going to put the link to the advising page, and you can find the link that you can enroll. The student can enroll there. So it's fully self-paced. They can self-enroll.
Yes. Let's see. There is a way to see the programs possible for mechanical engineering. This one, again, course approval database is a good place to start, but also the wonderful thing about Pratt is that they have the Pratt deans, because Pratt is a little bit smaller. There's 5 deans, and they know their students pretty well, and they're actually really well connected with our office. And so if your student sits down with their Pratt dean and starts talking about the classes they want to take, the dean is going to be able to help them too. The most popular study abroad program is the program your student goes on. Um, I mean, I'll say generally that the most popular study abroad programs are in Europe. A lot of our students are looking for English speaking programs, which doesn't necessarily mean it has to be an English speaking country, because a lot of universities in Europe, especially, offer classes in English. Um, Even though the people outside the walls of that university or inside the walls are speaking Spanish or French or German. Um, but that means that there's a lot of opportunities for students. But they do tend to gravitate towards Western Europe, and and that's understandable. There's a lot of travel opportunities in Europe, but we have lots of opportunities for the road less traveled too, and we love Duke students are so creative and so smart. We have this one set of programs through the School for International Training, SIT, where they do thematic programming. And when we read the worksheets for those students, you're like, wow, this is how the world is like gonna be, like a better place. This is how we're going to solve climate change. This is how we're going to solve the world's problems because these students are so brilliant and want to do such amazing things. And so the road most traveled is not always the right road for everyone. And so just keeping that in mind. Mariah, did you talk about living off campus when you return? Like,
We did not talk. I did not say anything about that.
okay, so for that one, you got to be careful because housing actually does a lottery that for spring that happens in like the first week of October. And so you can't plan to live off campus if you go in the fall. You have to wait to see if you get the lottery for off campus housing. Because remember, Duke is a residential campus, and we are intending to have our students live in the residences on campus. And so that is housing's priority. And so you often find like we found this semester, saw it on one of the parent Facebook pages that students who had already secured off-campus housing then didn't get the lottery, and now we're kind of in a tricky situation. And so we don't want that to happen. So it's best if you just wait to see how the lottery works out. Lots of Pratt approved classes. Again, the course approval database, great place to find those. Um, we have programs in Eastern Europe, and they also can always, it's called petitioning when they sort of go off our list of pre-approved programs. But if they want to go somewhere in Eastern Europe, Duke has something called the restricted regions list. So if it's on the restricted regions list, they have to petition the Global Advisory Committee to be able to go there. But as long as it's not on the restricted regions list, they should be able to go, no problem.
Question about how many credits a student needs to take when studying abroad. It's the equivalent of 4 Duke credits, but that varies significantly depending on the program that your student enrolls in. So that's one of the things that you'd want to look on the brochure page to make sure that you understand what the course load is going to be for that particular program. But it varies very significantly between different programs. It'll be the equivalent, though, of 4 Duke credits. Are there any Duke administered programs for engineers? There is Duke in Berlin engineering program is a spring program specifically for engineering students. It is a longer semester, so I think that is just something to know about the program and think about. But no German is required for that program, or prior German knowledge is required. They do have to take German while they're there. Um, all right. And someone who joined late, but are there caps on how many students go abroad in each program? Yes, we do have general caps for the programs because it's important that the program can handle the number of Duke students that are going there. So we want to make sure that your students have a really great experience. And that's not going to be the case if hundreds of Duke students all go to the same place.
Let's see.
You might just need to search. If the My Global Ed program discovery page is showing no programs, it might mean that you need to filter or search differently. Or maybe reload the page. Sometimes it is a little finicky.
Yeah, sometimes the graphics get a little wonky. Let's see if you're, but if you
Does the
go,
semester start earlier in Australia? The fall semester does. It generally starts in July. And then spring semester starts a little later and then ends later as well. So just remember that Southern Hemisphere, they also take breaks during their summer, but their summer is opposite of when ours is. So their school year mirrors ours, but is kind of juxtaposed, so that there's no break in our summer because it's their winter. Which Duke administered programs offer dorm or residence hall living? Um, it depends on the program. And I will say that it also sometimes depends on the availability of residence hall housing. So, for example, Duke in Madrid does have some residence hall housing, but it is not guaranteed for every student that would prefer that housing. It is preference for students that have either dietary, medical, or disability needs. And we have limited spaces in the residence hall, so that is something that we can't always guarantee, but we do our best to accommodate students' requests for the type of housing that they would like. Definitely check the brochure pages of the programs that you're interested in to see what type of housing is available at each program. When does it end then?
I'm not sure I know when that's associated with.
Neither.
Um, tend to be. South Korea generally accommodates most of the applicants. So I think the hardest thing about the South Korea programs is that the deadline or the timeline for when they find out that they've been accepted is very late into the summer. And so sometimes, they're leaving campus in the spring and then they don't find out about Yonsei or Seoul National. Seoul National is one of them, I think. They don't find out about them until like July or August sometimes because the semesters start a little later there. So it can be a little nerve-wracking. And I know students have a hard time not knowing.
There are language requirements for programs that happen in countries where English is not the official language. So if your student goes to an English speaking country, there is no language requirement. Any other country where English is not an official language, they do have to take one course at least in that language. And it can be an intro course. It doesn't have to be, an upper level language course.
What city in
Um,
Spain are courses offered? Oh man. We have Barcelona, Sevilla,
Granada,
uh,
Madrid.
Madrid,
Um, in Latin America, there's a few in Argentina,
yeah,
in Buenos
Valparaiso,
Aires,
Chile,
Chile. I think there's one in
Santiago.
Ecuador. This is SIT. I think there's an SIT program in Ecuador. We just actually did a group advising session on Spanish speaking world, and we recorded that and are going to be posting that on our website soon. So check back for that because we actually went through every single program in a Spanish speaking country that is available to Duke students. You can also search for those countries or search by regions on our search tool as well.
You answered the proficiency question.
I don't think I did. So if your student is studying a language at Duke already, if if they're in a Duke administered program, then they already know what level of that language they should be placing into because they've already taken courses at Duke. If they are going if they haven't taken courses at Duke, we do have a proficiency test that they would probably have to take to make sure that we place them appropriately in the level. If they're doing a Duke approved program, often those programs will require a proficiency test just to verify that students are placed into the correct level, because we want them to be successful. We don't want them to go into a course that is like too high or too low.
And I just dropped in the chat that you can email us if we didn't get to your question, globaled@duke.edu, and we're pretty prompt in responding to those. So we'd love to hear from you.
Awesome, friends. Well, thank y'all so much for this wonderful information. Families, thank y'all so much for joining us tonight. Like they said, y'all can reach out to them with any questions. If you do not remember that particular email address, you know you can always find us at familyprograms@duke.edu. And y'all, we'll see y'all next week at Family Weekend. Oh my God, it's here. Woohoo!
We'll be tabling on Friday, so feel free to swing by the table and grab some swag.
Perfect. Swag, questions, all the above. I love it. I love it.
We
Well,
got the
friends,
best
y'all have a
pen.
great evening, and we'll see you next week. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank y'all. I really appreciate that. I'll see y'all next week during Family Weekend.